Welcome, everybody, to House General and Housing. Today is Tuesday, believe it or not, May 20th. What we're going to do is we're going to briefly talk about the procedural situation and posture with S-127. And then, and if we do that quickly, then we'll adjourn temporarily until 2 p.m. when we have a witness beginning to discuss the issue of one of our sort of projects of vacant and delinquent property, kind of what can be done. Remember, we have at least 3 sort of projects that we know we're working up to probably some sort of approach to for next session. And this is our opportunity to begin to take testimony in those areas. So first, let's do S-127 briefly. I just want to bring the committee up to speed on what's been happening. And then, as I said, we'll adjourn until 2. So as you remember, we passed our H-469 bill, or 79 bill. We passed it out of committee and it went to the floor. That bill had in it, that was a start, and it passed out of the floor on a voice vote and went over to the Senate. And it's in the Senate, and I'll talk about what's happened to it in the Senate. Meanwhile, the House passed its housing bill, which is S-127.
The Senate has its own.
Yeah, and they passed it, and Senate, it was referred to us. Okay, one of the pieces of the Senate, we, with some pretty early consultation with Chair Marcotte of the Commerce and Senator Clarkson, the chair of the Housing Committee in the Senate, we decided that the way we were going to handle the CHIPS part of this was actually the Senate was going to start, but send it over to us pretty quickly and not in a not fully fleshed out manner, just to get it over to us. So that S-127 had, for the first time, CHIPS in it. We, in our housing bill, didn't have it. So what we did is we have been working on S-127 and just going to reprise where we're at. The first thing we did is everything in our bill, H-479, we put in S-127. Areas where the Senate had added stuff, we also worked on. For example, they included provisions in adding citizenship and immigration status as protected classes, and we had been working on that in a separate bill, and we put it in. We also, in our original bill, the H bill that went out, we had a few sections on brownfield. One of the, like a report, like how do you make it efficient, prioritize housing. But the Senate bill contained one additional piece, and this was this development soils piece. And so that's where you can move. Remember, it's very expensive to balance a site. If you have a big hole that you have to fill and you have to buy fill, it's very expensive. If you have a big hill, you have no place to put the soil, very expensive to get it off. So this allows soil to be moved around as long as it's background or very low contamination protection. So we shipped that over to Environment Committee for their opinion. We have possession of S-127. Nobody else does. It's ours. It was ours at that time. So we got a very positive, quick response from the Environment Committee. So we put that in, the development soil. And after like several weeks of testimony, including joint testimony on the two committees, we got the CHIPS language and we put the CHIPS language in the bill. Okay, you with me so far? I'm just trying to reprise.
Yep.
Okay, so then we passed it out of committee. And it went to the floor and was referred to Ways and Means. Okay, so then Ways and Means held hearing and they passed a version of the CHIPS. They didn't change anything else. They just did a strike all on the CHIPS pages and passed a version of CHIPS, which was similar in many respects, but not fully similar in others. And I'll get back into those differences, but that bill passed out of their committee and then went, so our bill and their amendment went over to appropriations. And appropriations today has possession of that. And I believe that today they will vote it out. There's just not a lot of appropriations issues in the bills. I mean, there's issues, but not appropriations issues. So at the same time, and so it will reach the floor tomorrow, but on notice, and then be able to be heard this Thursday, unless it's delayed, which could be. Okay, so as is not atypical with a big bill, there was a lot of reaction to the CHIPS sections. We actually haven't had much in the way of reaction, negative reactions to our original, the rest of our bill. But there were reactions to the CHIP bill. And those, I'll just summarize them briefly. I think many of you know them. One is that the CHIPS version has emerged from Ways and Means was too restrictive on the location criteria, where projects could be located, and people were worried that this would discriminate against rural areas and smaller projects. There was concerns about the cap that was placed on it. There were concerns about that it was too complex, that it was burdensome because it was too complex. There were concerns about from both different sides about the requirements concerning affordable housing.
Perpetuity.
Yeah, and then the affordable housing, perpetuity, permanent residence idea, so those concerns. So last week, various parties met to begin the process of seeing, could we address those issues? The problem is, it's procedurally, it's out of Ways and Means. It's out of Ways and Means. And there's really no way to kind of like claw it back. So it would have to take the form of an amendment that would be on the floor. And that's in process. It's not definitively yet. There's no full draft. And when there is, believe me, you will know about it. Okay, so what is the process going forward then? Say an amendment is finally produced, okay? If that amendment and when it is produced on the floor, our committee, because we are, part of 127, we're the originators, we will have to have straw poll. Remember how on the floor, when there's an amendment, then they call on the presenter of the bill, what was your, reaction to the amendment in committee, favorable, unfavorable by a straw poll of X. And so that will happen at least once, maybe twice. And if there are more amendments, which there may be more, we may be popping out of the floor here. I don't know if you've ever experienced.
Exciting.
Many of you had,
No, I get very
Yeah,
jealous, all these
but-
approach people just.
yeah, well, what happens is if something is presented on the floor and you haven't had time to do it ahead of time, you have to, literally, she recesses and we all run over here and sit down and discuss it as long as we need to, and we reach a vote. And then we go back in and we say what it is. So sometime soon, in the next day or two, we may be asked to vote on an amendment. I think one way or another, we're going to have to be prepared to make a floor report by, I would say, Thursday. So remember the last time around, we all, a bunch of us, sort of distributed it. So I've checked with the clerk because I don't think it makes sense for us to go into great depth to all the stuff in our bill that the House already passed out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everything not associated, the only things that are new are, well, they're not, it's a good bit, but it's chips. It's the protected status.
Right.
It's the development dirt. That's about it. And so I decided that, and if anybody objects, let me know because I'd be delighted. I've decided that I ought to make a floor report and just make it mine, and I should be as summary as possible for everything except the new stuff. As to chips, what I've asked is, can I defer to Marcotte? Can I, what do you call it? Yield to Marcotte? And the answer
He
is,
says
you
no.
don't usually do that, but yes, you can. So I will yield to Marcotte.
And he's accepted.
Yeah, now here's the problem I just want you to know about. Unbelievably rigid and difficult, but it's just the way it is. Normally, you've all seen it on the floor. Normally, what would happen is, first, Marcotte would present chips. Or he'd present it in general, and I would present it section by section, as it came out of our committee,
Mhm.
right? And then Ways and Means would stand up and
Yeah.
present their changes, right?
Right.
And then, if there's another amendment, somebody would stand up and present those changes.
The amendment to the
Right,
amendment.
the amendment to the amendment. So it would be presented 3 times. I hope that we somehow will be able to simplify this, or I'm not so worried about how long it takes. I'm worried about how confused everybody will be when it's all over. And so we'll try to make it more. And that's where we stand. The speaker is involved in this. There's a lot of discussion about ways, both the substance of what such an amendment would be and whether and how it's reported out. Yes,
Can I ask what happens after it gets voted out of the floor?
yeah, it is voted out of the floor. Then it goes to the Senate. As soon as the Senate gets it, they can request a conference.
Okay,
I hope that we can get ourselves into conference quickly. We may have to have suspension of the rules in order to get to the Senate faster, but in order to do that, we have to have bipartisan support for that. You don't remember suspension of the rule as those who tried, who successfully prevented us from being allowed to take our jackets off. No, you need a 3/4 vote in order to suspend it.
2/4. 3/4?
Then it goes, now, the Senate bill passed out of the analog to our 2 committees, which is Senate Housing finance, whatever they call it, commercial finance,
Economic
economic development, and thank you, and general, and went to environment and sat there for a long time. But I think it is off the environment count and now coming to the Senate floor at some point. The question of
Wait, what is 479?
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, as they changed it,
Oh, my God.
yes. So all
I
of
thought we were
this,
done in
yes,
479.
well, I did too, but anyway, so all of this is by way of saying, I think that things will come to a head at the end of the week, and we will have
Sounds about right.
a floor, will be on the floor. And I will do my best. I don't, but in the and I think the amendment that we're talking about is important, and I don't know there will be sufficient to. I know it won't be sufficient to address everybody's concern, but my impression so far is that it will address many concerns.
You're saying that there'll be a new amendment
From Ways and
from
Means.
Ways and Means?
It won't come from.
Oh, from somebody in
Yeah.
the building
Well,
will be an
it would, I
amendment.
think ideally it would be from, I'm hoping that the chairs of the three committees could reach enough agreement to sponsor the amendment. In other words, it's not gonna come from Ways and Means.
Right,
It's
right,
not a
right, right,
committee
right. I get it, I
amendment,
get
it's
it.
gotta
It's a
come
new amendment to what, to,
To the
that
Ways and Means,
could be
yeah,
a mix
it
of
would be about chips.
a CHIPS amendment from
Somebody.
somebody,
Well, it would have to be Emily and.
not necessarily,
Yeah, it could be-
anyone can
it
do
could
an
be
amendment on
anybody, yeah.
anything.
Well, and I imagine there will be other amendments.
Got it. And then we'll have to, so we'll be straw polling possibly multiple amendments.
That's correct.
And what is the benefit of this wildly overly complicated process? I'm just curious because it's a very straightforward, easy thing to do. We just find their amendment unfavorable and we propose an amendment, or they propose an amendment, we jointly propose an amendment. It's a real easy process. But this 45 meetings without the rest of the committees involved. And it's just the chair or the vice chair, I don't know. So I'm awfully curious as to how this amendment that I don't seem to be part of is going to be our amendment now,
Well, I think
Your
the
amendment.
I think that,
because it's three chairs are agreeing on something.
well, first of all, the issues are CHIPS issues. They belong to the Commerce Committee and Ways and Means Committee. And I think that, but I think it implicates us.
Well, I think we made changes to the CHIP program.
Yeah, we did, and so it implicates us. So yeah, the three chairs have been meeting, trying to address what we hear from all kinds of people, our problem. And then merely to produce a draft. I don't think you can have 33 people writing a draft. And then when that draft comes, it'll come to the three committees to decide what they want to do.
So the amendment will have a report from all three straw polls.
Probably, yeah.
Are we the only one straw poll?
No, all three.
What do you mean all three?
I think if it's
Why would
about
Ways
chips,
and Means
I think-
straw polling?
because it's their, I think they will because it's their bill. I mean, it's
No,
their.
it's not there
their-
because it's not their amendment.
It's
It's
their-
not a committee
Yeah,
amendment, so
that's
therefore
true.
they have to vote on it.
That's
Is
true.
that what
I
it
don't
is?
know, but we definitely will. But I think probably,
Right.
I suspect without knowing, you're raising an important point. I never thought about it. I just suspect that the other committees will do it and will report. Stand up and report, but I don't know. But it's our bill, so we have to,
We definitely.
yeah, yeah. And it's my hope that it's a good amendment, in fact. That's my hope. We'll see. And it's one other thing. Oh, yeah. There is one amendment you should know about. It's floating around out there. Representative Logan has been working on a problem having to do with zoning associated with shelters.
Oh, I read about that, yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna try a very quick summary, but I haven't retained what I've been told, shall we say. This is a nice way of saying I've forgotten what. I think it's a Burlington problem and it has to do with their concerns. And it's kind of late for that. And so it actually went to Environment Committee. And because it's involved zoning and planning, and it actually went out of their committee on a 10-1 vote. Which I think originally that wasn't the feeling, but I guess they all took testimony. Yeah,
Wait, I don't think it's necessarily a Burlington problem, because I know that, for example, in towns that have density restrictions and they're outside of that particular area, if there was a church, say, that could have been used as a shelter, say, it couldn't be used as a shelter because of zoning. And so it's not just a Burlington problem.
right. I'm just saying its origin seemed to be concerns that Burlington raised. However, it now is going tomorrow to the Human Services Committee.
Wait, okay, I'm sorry, I need to interrupt.
Yeah.
Why would an amendment to our bill be heard by another committee before we've ever seen the amendment? That's not how it's supposed to work. How is that?
Yeah, that
This is
seems
a-
odd to me.
At this point, I don't think that we can, in good conscience, leave this building, this session without a housing bill, but this bill is no longer our bill. That's insane that a different committee would hear an amendment to our bill, and if we're following it, never mind.
Well, let me tell you how it happened. Kate Logan has been talking to us about this for a long time, but she's pushed it and then been busy with other things and then pushed it and been busy with other things. So what I told her is that I really don't think that this was a bill that we had any expertise on at all. And that I certainly didn't think it would get anywhere probably in our committee unless we knew that the committees who had expertise in it, what they felt about it. And the two committees were environment, because it's zoning, and health services, because it's shelters. So she's on environment and took it to environment for a straw poll. That's a way of getting their advice. Then she's taking it tomorrow to Human Services. As to why it should be attached to us, it's because we're one of the only remaining vehicles. Whether we have the power to say no, or any one of us can raise a point of order as to whether it's germane.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't feel good about that process really, and I don't like last minute, like just trying to add things as vehicle, like do your own bill, like I don't understand, she's been here as long as me, like that's kind of how it works, you put a bill in, you could do a short form but it seems, seems very strange, and just on that, I don't know how I feel about, I don't even know what it is, I think I maybe saw an article where she posts, I don't know, but I don't know anything about it. And if this is our house, like this is a landmark housing bill, and I don't like when things just start popping up like that, really. That's how I feel about it.
It will be our option. Well, and anyone, if they want to, can raise a point of order. I'm not sure whether it's germane. I don't know.
I guess I'm curious of the process that you brought up, Ash. So this is like intending,
It's not.
To be an amendment.
She hasn't even attached it to anything.
I understand that, but like, is the idea that it would be a floor amendment to the housing bill?
Yeah.
So how do you get to go in front of committees for straw polls when you haven't announced any? Like, you
I don't
haven't,
know. I just know, I told her, she's been told by lots of people, but I told her that it was hard for me. We had no expertise in this area. And that we would need to know what other committees thought. But there's two different issues. One is,
I've never
should
heard.
anybody been talking about it, but also the other is, should we allow it to be attached? Should we express, what's our opinion on whether it should be an amendment? Like, and you're saying no.
Well, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, yeah, maybe it just doesn't make any sense. That sounds like you said, a different bill that would go on a human services bill or an environment bill that someone would introduce as a short form or something like that. But seems wonky to me. I've never heard of that.
Not only that, but just the notion that you would. I mean, I can understand like going in front of another committee and like just giving them some, like the process of having straw polls on an amendment that hasn't been proposed. Bill is not.
You're beyond my experience. I don't.
That is, I believe somebody introducing a bill or something the other day said bass backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Actually say it.
very, very appropriate for this right now.
Will any testimony have been taken, or is there any time?
There was testimony upstairs. I mean, over an environment.
So the understanding, or my understanding of the amendment is in understanding of the concern from conversations I've had with Rep. Logan, and now I haven't actually seen the amendment, is that the concern is anyone could use a unit and call.
Oh,
There we go.
it's just
Are
a
we,
glitch.
oh wait, are we live?
Yep,
Yes, we are
yep.
live. Okay.
So I don't know who's heard testimony. We haven't. The only reason I know about this is because I was around in 2023 and Rev. Logan's talked to me about it. I just on process alone, I have been beating the process drum for the last 2 years. It's gonna be a no for me.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do, actually, is it all right, everybody? If I pass on, I'm gonna pass on to everybody concerned, that would be the two committee chairs and leadership, that our committee has really major concerns about the relevance of this and whether we could possibly vote in favor of it in the absence of taking testimony and not feeling like at this point want to take testimony. Is that, what should I say? I don't want to do nothing. Okay,
Mhm.
I would,
yeah,
I would say that, it sounds like a really important issue that deserves actually time. If it was in if it was in a prior bill that came out of this committee, if the language is from anything that came out
It
of
didn't
here.
really come out of this committee because once again, this committee is not allowed to talk about Act 250 or zoning.
Right, and that's
So
what I
again,
was
we couldn't
thinking.
talk about half of the
So
bill.
then it needs to come out of that
And go on a bill
It needs
that
to be
would
in
be
human
with them.
services, yeah, but. Yeah,
They can't talk about zoning either,
Who?
human services,
No.
the environment.
Shelter.
Shelter is human services.
Right.
Zoning is environment.
But we have no jurisdiction over what she's talking about
Over either.
technically.
Right.
It just has the word shelter as a housing, and so it just feels like a last, just like, cause like, yeah.
Right, I don't know what the process, I've heard all the time of things becoming vehicles for all kinds of stuff.
but usually they have to start out as a bill.
But, yeah,
Right.
I'm hearing, yeah, so what, anything else I should be saying about this?
I think, again, it's the process. I feel, I'm not necessarily opposed to it at all.
Same.
It's a loophole, but this, I'm trying to remain positive, but I have lots of frustrations with this bill and this process. But it shouldn't have even gotten to her committee. Her chair should have said, where is this in general and housing? If you're gonna attach it to that, that should have been this first stopping point. The chair of Human Services should have asked the same thing. They should not take a straw poll until we have heard.
Okay,
And again,
don't-
it's not
If the
even
goal
our
was
bill.
going to be in our bill.
It's
goal
not
was to
even,
amend our bill.
right
and it
now, we don't
wouldn't
have
be referred to
jurisdiction.
us. Yeah, we don't have jurisdiction.
So I mean, if she wants to amend it, she needs to go to appropriations. And then that's when we would take a straw poll. But we should be the first ones having a straw poll of this.
It should go to appropriations.
Because that's who they have, who has
Possession, yeah.
Unless she wants it to be a floor amendment. But then again, on process, those two other committees have already heard it,
What, not yet, but. one
or
of
at
them
least
has-
one of them has, if they
yeah.
have a straw poll.
Right, and I thought zoning and stuff wasn't germane to the bill anyway. Cause otherwise, maybe there's
It's true,
people,
we've been
other,
told that,
we have been told that, and maybe there are other people in the building who would have liked to work on those issues and haven't. So then it's just like, that's okay, but then the Act 250 stuff's not, it's like,
We do have appeals.
that got special, I don't really know the difference. Not.
Yeah, that was deemed germane, but nothing else.
Because it was process, not actual zoning.
So.
This
I
sounds
will-
like real
yeah,
zoning.
okay, so I will
Gail.
convey that, Gail, yeah.
Wouldn't it have made more sense for it to be in the Committee of Human Services?
Yes, or
Their bill.
environment, one or the
It
other.
should have been environment.
Yeah, and they
then
have,
a straw
yeah, one
poll
of
and
them,
human
Yeah,
services.
right.
It
And-
should have been a short form bill that went to one of those committees and then they dealt with it and either passed it or not,
Yeah, okay,
in my opinion.
Mhm.
that's what I'm hearing, that, and I will convey that. It's not-
But people have the liberty to do a floor amendment and they can find it germane
Mary?
or not.
Mary?
Hi, Mary.
Hi, this is just really appalling. Somebody, we have to get clear advice from somebody, whether it's the clerk or the speaker. This is, this is like passing the buck all over the place. And it's not the first time that one of our bills has been sent to a committee by mistake. So, I think we really need to get some accurate advice on this. Otherwise, we're just spinning our wheels, and no one on the House floor is going to understand any of this bill.
Okay, I mean, I'm hearing various problems with the process. And in the end of it, just so you know, if someone proposes to attach it to our bill, we're gonna be asked for a straw poll.
That's fine.
Yeah, and we can say whatever we want.
And registering that I think it's unfortunate because I think if it's an important measure that could actually help people, I'm just saddened by
Right.
the fact that,
And legislators should also know how the process might work and they could have done it a different way. Just,
Well, again, I don't think, I could be wrong. Betsy Ann's the best person to ask, but I don't think it would be found germane at all to our bill. So I think it, even if someone has a floor amendment, it's not germane to the bill. And I do not, even though I do have some history, again, this committee was never allowed to talk about any of it. I can just tell you my initial thoughts. But I don't feel comfortable voting on my initial thoughts. This is not my area of expertise when it comes to sheltering in the zoning.
Right.
That is needed, so I wouldn't feel comfortable voting either way.
I think in some ways, I apologize. In some ways, I think I went part way when I talked to various people and I should have gone further. I mean, what I said was, this isn't our area of expertise. And so what I should have said is no. But instead I said, I certainly can't see the committee voting affirmatively without a position by the other two committees. And I probably just should have said no. So I
It's all right.
apologize. So I'll see what I can do. Okay, guys? All right. Is there any further discussion at this point? We can take a 15-minute break and come back at 2. Is that all right?
that seems great.
I can even get some lunch. Okay.
Oh, no.